Hi, this is Rev May here. Glad to have you to my podcast. I know God's probably been good to you because He's been good to me. So we'll get into it here in just a second. I want to tell you, if you hit the bottom right hand button and subscribe and hit like and give me a thumbs up, make a comment, things like that will help me get it in the rhythm and get it pushed out to other people. Thank you for everyone that has subscribed and those that are going to subscribe. Thank you so much. Today we're going to talk about young boys need father time. Now I realize daughters do too, but today we're talking about young boys. They need father time. It's very important for their father to make time for them. The reason this concept of needing to be with a father is so important is because the first part of a child's life, he's around his mother all the time. His mother has her friends come over, and when he's little, they talk baby talk to him. They all give him kisses and hold him, and as he's growing up, he's around women because dad's not around as much as mom is, and so he gets smothered by females. And there's nothing wrong with people loving on a baby and women doing that. I'm just trying to tell you like it is. They spend a lot of time with their mom and her friends. They go to the store with mom, and they're always talking about baby stuff and this and that, and girls go out and do shopping together and drag all their kids along with them, and so they're around the mothers a lot. So, and I realize that some mothers are single mothers and they work. I understand that. We'll kind of touch on most of that here in just a minute. But right now we're talking about a relationship between a father and a son. Somewhere in life, young men begin to realize that there's a world out there of men and things that men do and that things that men are a part of. Now young men wants to be identified with men and not with women. And so when I was young, my father taught me about baseball. He taught me some about boxing. My father, tomorrow's Father's Day, my father taught me a lot because my dad played semi-pro baseball. He was a semi-pro boxer. He worked in a mine in the early 1900s. My dad was born in 1895, and I think he was 13, 14 when he went to work in the mine. So that would have been somewhere around 1910. And 1909 is when he started working in the mine. They had no electricity, and he worked in a mine. He had 2 or 3 brothers killed in the mine. Uncle Johnny was electrocuted, fell right in my dad's arms, and my dad was holding him when his brother dropped over dead. He dug his other brother out from a cave-in. He was on the rescue committee, so he lived an interesting life before he became a minister and man of God, and then he started 7 churches in the 1930s and 40s in 3 different states. And the last time I checked was probably 10 years ago. And 2 of them had joined with other churches because they had a small church. They had one, they joined together and did that. And but most of them that I checked on are still going today. So there comes a day in a boy's life when he wants to go shopping with his dad, not with his mom or by himself. And men should take a personal interest in what their sons want and what they need, and then teach them to be a manly man. When I was 15, I remember I asked my mom, every year my mom and dad would go to J.C. Penney's, and we would get clothes for school. And I told Mom, I said, can I go get my own clothes? Anyway, we talked it over. She didn't want to, but she relinquished and gave me money, and I went up to J.C. Penney's. Penney's was probably 6 blocks from our house, something like that. I was 2 blocks from Cherokee Street, and that's where all the shopping was at. There was no malls in the city. And so I went to Penney's, and every year I got 5 pairs of jeans. I got 5 pullover shirts, some underwear and T-shirts, and if I needed it, I got the brogues, the boots that's lace up, J.C. Penney brogues, and I got them. And so I went and bought my own clothes and I probably wound up with what I would have. My mom was very good about when I got it to be a teenager, 13, 14. What do you want to wear and this and that. And that's what most of the boys I went to school with wore. They were some pullover shirt, a lot of times T-shirts when it was warm weather, and a pair of jeans and brogue shoes. Probably 90% of the guys wore that. So that's something that boys want to be a man and be around men all the time, not necessarily be at all of mom's functions. But now we have so many daycares and people take their kids and enroll them in preschool and all that. But when I was growing up, they didn't do that hardly at all. The problems with the church and faith is something that some men deem as feminine, woman. Excuse me, I'm still struggling from the stroke. I'm doing the best I can. Young men want to reject the house of the Lord because when they went there with their mother was in the ladies group. Their mother went to prayer meetings. Their mother went down to the church. Now, I ran into this a lot when I was growing up. It probably don't happen no more. The women used to get together 2 or 3 times a month, and they'd sew stuff and do sewing and visit and have coffee and I don't remember, cake, pie. They brought desserts, and they all sat around and had time together. Well, if the dad wasn't home from work yet, guess what? Kids got drugged to that. And so they was around women more than they was men. And so men kind of look at things different than women. When we got to church, all the teachers were women. All the Sunday school teachers I had, except for one, was women when I was growing up. From the time I was old enough to go to Sunday school, I guess 2 or 3, because I was in nursery when I was a little baby. Every teacher I had was a woman. It was all women at church. So there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying if a young man's growing up and he's around women all the time, he begins to want to be around with men. And so we need to realize that there's a life out there for fathers to take an active role in their children's well-being and welfare. Boys, when they're young, once they become 13, 14, 15, they don't want to be associated with going to church. They look at it as a feminine thing to where they're around girls all the time, because a lot of the fathers don't go to church. For those that do, that's wonderful, but there's a lot of them that don't, and so they kind of look at it differently. A father needs to man up, and he needs to take care of his children and teach his children about God. And he needs to let them know how to treat a woman and how to be respectful to people. And he finds this out from his father on how he should treat women and treat other people. His father teaches in this. And I know mothers teach it too, and especially if they're a single mom. I understand that. Our church, when I was a kid, there wasn't a lot of them, but we did have some single mothers. And my dad was very open and very accepting to mothers who were raising their kids on their own without a father. And so my dad became a father figure to a lot of young people. And I met a lot of them just before my dad died, and then at his funeral and afterwards, told me how much Dad meant to him and advice he gave him. One boy was going in the military. His dad was deceased. His mother was trying to talk him out of it. He wanted to join. It was in the 60s. The Vietnam War was going on. And my dad took him in the office, and they had a long talk and prayed together about it. And other boys did too. They talked to my dad and prayed to him because they knew they were coming up to be drafted. And so, anyway, that was a horrible time. And there was we had a couple of boys who went to our church that got wounded pretty bad over there in Vietnam. And 2 of them got crippled for life. And so it was a serious thing. And my sister was a youth leader at that time. My oldest sister, TR, we called her TR, her name was Thalma Ruth, but everybody called her TR. And she put a big, beautiful thing she had her husband build. He was real good at carpentry work, and Willard built it. And she put the pictures of every boy in the church that was in the armed forces, and put their name and put a picture and had a little thing telling what outfit they was in. And some of the people, their grandsons, didn't go to our church, but their grandparents did, and they'd say, "Can I put my grandson so they'll pray for him?" And every service before they dismissed, they prayed for all those boys on the wall that was hanging on the wall, their pictures. And I thought that years later, I thought, that was awful good of my sister. It was awful good that she cared about them. And I had 3 guys tell me after she passed, she wrote me every week while I was in Vietnam. I don't think I would have made it. She wrote me more than my mom did. And she sent me cookies or whatever and all that. And she wrote me all the time, sometimes 2 times, 3 times a week. Because I look forward to the mail. And I didn't know, but she took an interest and loved them. Maybe it's because she had 2 sons that were in the military. But they served in the early 60s before they got really involved in Vietnam, and they were military policemen. So she understood boys being away from home. The Bible says in Proverbs 22 and verse 6, "Train up a child in the way he should go. Even when he is old, he will not depart from it." It's your responsibility as the head of the household. A man is to be the head of the household. That does not mean that he treats his wife like a second-class citizen. All right? He puts her under his arm to protect her. He don't put her under his feet to walk on her. He respects her and shows her respect, and she has an important role in everything of the family. All right? Everything of the family. And if Dad would die before the kids got grown up, she has to take that role on too. So women are super important, but it's a father's place to train his children up in the way of the Lord. Ephesians 6 and 4 says, "Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right." All right? There's a promise in the Bible. It's the first promise. It says that if you honor your father and mother, you'll have long life on this earth. If you honor your father and mother. So show them respect, honor them. And then I remind the Lord once in a while when I pray, I say, "Lord, I want to live a long time. I want to enjoy my grandkids and my great-grandchildren because you said in your word that if I honored my father and mother, I would have a long life." And I did. I honored them and I tried to do what they wanted. And sometimes we didn't always agree on some things. And I'll just give you one quick example. My dad didn't care, all right, but my mom did, and a lot of the church people they didn't believe in dancing, all right, and every year at school they had square dancing, and it was a week, maybe 2 weeks, but I think it was 1 week. Every gym period they had square dancing. Well, my mom didn't want me to participate, so they get a letter on the church stationery and I'd take it to school and give it to them. And then they'd have me sit over there in a chair while I watched all my friends dance. I took a lot of teasing, some shots from people about it and all that, but didn't make me happy. But I could have went on and danced and just not told them. They would have never known. They would have never known. My parents never, ever in my life went to the school. Not once. I mean, I didn't cause a lot of trouble. There wasn't a big reason for them to go. They never went to school. So if I wouldn't have told them we were square dancing, they would have never known it. I could have went on and did it. I wouldn't have been an outcast. I wouldn't have taken any shots, and it would have been by. But I knew that my mother did not approve of it, and I don't live for the church people. And that's what I told my mom and dad when I was growing up. I don't care what they think. I don't live for them. I live for God, and I live for my parents. It's what you think that is important to me. And we even had a person get mad one time. They come by, and I was 14 or 15. It was hot summertime. I was out cutting grass. I wasn't wearing a shirt. Didn't have a shirt. And they told my mom and dad what they thought about it before they left. And then they called a bunch of church people when they got home because I wasn't wearing a shirt. And so I know things have changed a lot, and thank God they have. But it was things like that that made me want to learn things from my father also. Train up a child. Men need to read the Bible. They need to take their children to church. They need to help their children to study and try to answer any questions they have. And bring mom in too. Let her sit down with the Bible. Mom answers some of their questions. She may know more about things than dad does, or certain things. And you share with your children, teach them the importance. When I was growing up, my parents paid for me every morning before I left for church. for school. Sorry. And then they prayed for me every night before I went to bed. When I was 17 years old, I'd still walk in the room, even though I was going to stay up a little later. My dad was a very strict, not to me, I'm not talking about, but he had a regiment. He went to bed every night at 10:30. He rarely watched any TV except we'd watch boxing on Friday night. Gillette had fights, and my dad being an amateur boxer, we watched boxing and wrestling. But the wrestling they had when I was a kid wasn't as wild as it is now. It was a lot of real matches. And so we watched that together, and baseball games, and then the Cardinal football. And me and my dad shared a lot over the sports. It was really good for me as a young man growing up. But before I went to bed, I let my father pray for me. If he was in bed and I got down too late, my mom prayed for me. I got prayed for all the way up till I left the home and moved out. And so there was nothing wrong with that. I respected my parents and I appreciated their prayers. A father should make time for his children to help them, and he must pray with them and let them know that he loves them and that he's behind them. And if your child makes a mistake and does something they shouldn't do and you taught them not to do that, then you ought to deal with it, and they can be punished depending on what it is. But I'm going to take the keys to the car for a week or something, whatever you may do. But that's okay. But they still know that you love them. They still know that you want them to go to heaven. They still want you to. They want to know that you want them to make it to heaven and be there someday, so you can be reunited with your family and your friends. A father should support his children spiritually, physically, financially, and mentally. And you should train the children. You should support them in every area that you possibly can. That doesn't mean you buy them everything under the sun and give them everything they want. I'm not saying that. When I was a kid, I knew that my father was a pastor. And I knew that we didn't have health insurance. I didn't find out till I was about 15 or 16. I didn't even know they had health insurance. And I found out some of the families in our neighborhood, their dad got it where they worked, and we never had health insurance. I mean, you had to have an appendage falling off your body before my parents would take you to the hospital or take you to the doctor. And so we did prayer and a lot of home remedies, but my mom was real good about taking care of us and getting us what we needed when we needed it. And my dad was involved in our life and cared about us, and we knew it. And I could talk to him about anything. I'd say, Dad, can I talk to you? I need to talk to you privately. He'd say, come on in. And I'd go in his office. He'd close the door. I could tell him anything. And my mother, I could too. But a lot of things I felt more comfortable talking to my dad about, especially when it come to girls, because my dad taught me how to treat a woman. I think if there's still some girls around that I dated when I was in my 20s or whatever, when I was young, they know that I didn't honk the horn. I came up to the door and rang the doorbell or knocked on the door. And then I'll never forget, there was a young lady, we only dated probably 8 or 10 times, something like that. And she lived in a small town over in Illinois, right by the river. And we had people went to our church that was in the same town as them. And I went and picked her up. I rang the doorbell, and her dad answered the door. And when he did, he put his arm up on the door. He was talking to me. He was wearing dress slacks, real nice, and a dress coat. And he had a gun strapped right here. He got my attention real quick. A young man. He said, what time you plan on bringing her home? I said, what time do you want her home? He said, I won't want her home past midnight. I said, she'll be here before midnight. He was okay. And then he started talking to me and giving me the third degree. You're still in school. Yeah. Do you work part-time? Yeah. Where do you work? What do you do? Blah, blah, blah. And I didn't say yeah time. I said, yes, sir, no, sir, yes, sir, no, sir. And he even said to me, you're not old enough. Well, you're old enough to join, but you're not in the military. I said, no, sir. He goes, well, you sure say no, sir, yes, sir? I said, that's the way my father and my mother raised me. That's the way I'm supposed to talk. Oh, okay. And he liked that. So he must have liked a lot, because he was real nice to me after that. But I'm trying to tell you that her dad was a Christian man, And my dad was a Christian man. Dad taught me how to treat a woman, and he taught her how she should be treated. And I knew that. Same way with my wife when I met her. Her dad set me down and told me, so to speak, how the cow eat the cabbage, and what he expected and all that. And I respected him for that. And he was always straight with me. And then he was my father-in-law for a lot of years. I think we were married probably 19 or 20 years before he passed. And he was like a second father to me. He was really good to me. Ron was a good man. He didn't go to church hardly ever, but I was able to talk to him about the Lord and pray with him probably 3 or 4 months before he passed. And to my knowledge, when we prayed, he made things right with God. And he told me he appreciated it. So I had a lot of respect for him. I think he had some for me too. A father should support his children spiritually and mentally. Don't be abusive to your children. Don't make your children live in fear. Don't make them where they won't even talk to you or come to you when they got a problem because they're afraid of you. They should be able to come to you with anything and talk to you. Then you'll know what's going on in your child's life and you'll be able to help them as you go along. So you need to support them that way. Now, when I was a kid, there was a lot of men, when they left the wife, they didn't pay their child support and they dodged and ducked. It was easier to do back then than it is today. And you shouldn't do that. You ought to accept responsibility and take care of your child. Fathers, your daughters should be important to you too. They need father time too. They need time to be with their father by themselves. And they need their father to tell them about life and what to expect from men and what to do. All your children deserve some of your time. Now, as a grandfather, I take one granddaughter out and I said, where do you want to go to lunch? Me and you are going to lunch. We're going to have grandpa time. I'm going to spend time with Papa's and you are going to spend the day together. Then I take the other granddaughter. Then I take my grandson. Then I take my other grandson. I spend time with each one of them individually, probably 3 or 4 times a year, where I go out with them alone so I can help them and tell them about God. Not that their father and mother don't. I'm not saying that at all, not implying it. I'm just saying that I try to give them, let them know that I love them and what God loves them, and we need to do that. Fathers need to support their children with more than just dollars, with more than just buying them everything they want under the sun. All right, when I was a kid, I knew my father was a pastor. I tried to tell you this a while ago and it skipped my mind. I'm sorry. Things will get better and I'll get back to where I was. Let me get on it before I forget it again. But I knew my parents couldn't afford to buy me a lot of things. So I went out and hustled and I sold newspapers. I rode on a paper truck every chance I got. I got $1 an hour, worked from midnight till 6 in the morning with my buddy Steve. And sometimes they needed me, sometimes they didn't. When they needed me, I got the ride. I got $6. I was the janitor of the church. Most of the people went to our church lived more than 20 miles from it. They didn't want to come back and clean it. So I got that job when I was 15. And I did that. And I sold papers and I rode on a paper truck. And then I had a paper route on a corner. And then I also did odd jobs, painted garage, painted a fence for a lady who was a widow woman, and all this. I did all sorts of things, shoveled snow, cut a little grass. I did everything I could to hustle and make money. I bought my own bicycle, my own baseball glove, my spikes. I bought my Cardinal baseball hat. I bought my record player and all my records. I bought my transistor radio, and I bought my own TV. And I bought that. I didn't expect my parents to do that for me. And also in those days, you didn't just throw things away. If the volume went out on the TV, you took the back off of it after you unplugged it, and you found a black tube. That's the bad one. You'd unscrew it, take it up to the TV shop. He'd sell you a new tube. You come home, you stuck the tube in, put the back on, plugged it in. Voila, it's fixed. And you go on. So we did that. We did a lot of stuff like that when we were growing up. But we got out, and my friends, I just mentioned Steve, him and his brothers, they hustled, they worked for money, they did the same thing. We didn't expect our parents to buy us everything. We bought a lot of things. And I'll tell you one last thing because it's Father's Day tomorrow. My dad, I come home from school one day, and we were almost out of school. I don't remember if we were a week away or 2 weeks away, but we were almost out of school. It was warm weather. And my dad says, son, get in the car, I want to take you somewhere. That was unusual. I thought we're headed to the church because I go down and help him do stuff. My dad was a lot older than me, and him born in 1895. He would give me directions and I'd do stuff that was, stuff that he probably shouldn't have been doing. And so I thought we were headed to the church. He pulled up to Western Isle and said, I need to go in here for a minute. Will you come in with me? I said, okay. So I walked in the back door. Western Isle, the parking lot was in the back. And we went inside and we walked up the counter and the guy said, Reverend May, I got it ready for you. And he turned around and grabbed a candy apple red Schwinn bicycle, a 3-speed. And the guy said, your dad said, it ain't your birthday, but he wants you to have this. And he handed it to me. He wheeled it up and I looked up at my dad. My dad was smiling. I knew he couldn't afford it, but he got me. He said, son, ride that thing home so you can show it to your mom. I told her all about it. And we only lived like 3 blocks from there. And he was going to put it in the trunk. He said, why don't you ride it home? So I rode it home and I showed it to my mom. I'll never forget that. That meant a lot to me. Your parents love you. They care about you. They'll sacrifice for you. So you need to do what's right before God. And if you've got some ought against your parents, I've preached so many funerals where I would see women and men, young boys who are in their teens and young girls in their teens, sit at the casket and weep and say, Mom, I'm sorry that I said I hated you. Mom, I'm sorry that I ran away from home. I'm sorry and all that. The mom can't hear you. She's gone. Dad can't hear you. He's gone. And then they always ask me, a lot of them, well, do you think they look down and they can see I'm sorry and all that? And I don't want to give them an unscriptural thing. And I said, no, I don't believe that happens. I don't find anywhere in the scriptures where people look down and see you, but you need to make peace so that you can be happy. I'm sure your father and mother knew that you loved them, and which I did mean. But let me tell you something. My mom taught me this. Son, if you're going to buy me flowers, do it when I'm alive so I can smell them and enjoy them. Don't put one flower on my grave when I'm gone. Use that money. If you feel like buying flowers, use that money to help some kid that needs something or some family that needs food, and spend that money on them. That will please God, and once you get here and join me, it will please me too. She said, but don't get me stuff because I don't know it. It may make you feel better. It won't do anything for me. And my dad told me the same thing. He said, don't put flowers on my grave. Don't even buy me flowers for my funeral. Take whatever money you're going to do that and help someone in need. And my dad had a heart for the Filipino people. He spent a month over there preaching and walking around, going up in the mountains. And matter of fact, in 1960, when he came back, he told the people at church that there were still Japanese soldiers up in the mountains. And I heard a bunch of men laughing out on the sidewalk, saying my dad was Looney Tunes. There was no way. But in 1974, they brought down the last guy, and one guy came down in 73 just ahead of him, and there was Japanese soldiers up in the mountains there. And so, we need to realize that your children are important, and fathers should take an interest in their children's life and give them the knowledge and the prayers and the love that they need so they can be successful in life. Hope you got something out of this today. God loves you. I love you, and God wants you to be happy. So if you've got something between you and your parents, make it right now, because you don't want to wait till it's too late. All right? God loves you, and I love you. Thank you for your time, this time, till next time. Old Rev May signing off. Be a good parent.